This video is sponsored by Paradox Arc. Hey everybody, it's PartyElite, and today we're taking a look at Stardeus, a new sci-fi colony management game that puts you in charge of a spaceship with your consciousness uploaded to the ship's computer so you can help it become the new home for your fellow cryogenically preserved colonists. From power grid management to a complex research tree to a whole galaxy and beyond to explore, trade with, and defend against, there is a lot to do in Stardeus, and if all that sounds interesting to you, you can check out the link in the pinned comment and description down below to learn more about the game and perhaps pick it up for yourself too. Today's video should give you a good idea of what to expect early on in your Stardeus experience, and if you pick it up, it should get you started on the right foot too. Now, with no more time to waste on an introduction and with timestamps down below to jump around as you like, let's begin. Prepare for awakening. At the start of almost all of the scenarios, you'll find yourself equipped with only a handful of drones, a randomly generated platform, a central computer surrounded by power generation and research-related equipment, a few storage units full of construction materials, a shuttle, and most importantly for this section of the video, a stasis array. The stasis array has two modes for its life support systems. Basic is how it starts by default, requiring very little power, but automatically releasing colonists at random intervals, whether you're ready or not. The advanced setting consumes a lot more power to the point of being somewhat prohibitive in the early game, but it allows you to request the release of a colonist. Now, it doesn't happen immediately, but at least you know you're prepared when you ask for one. Before that first colonist comes out though, you need to prepare the space to not actually be in outer space. The platform you typically start with has no walls, which means you need to start making airtight rooms using walls, and you need to build oxygen pumps to actually fill said rooms with oxygen. You also need to warm these rooms up using heaters, but more on that in a bit. You can use vents to transfer oxygen and heat from room to room, and efficient placement of oxygen pumps and heaters and vents will save you from wasting energy, and it will also ensure the inner parts of your ship are safe for a person to walk around in. Any space that lacks heat and oxygen will be avoided by colonists that don't have a spacesuit, and this can severely limit their access to the things they need and the work they can do. It can also kill them if they step out of the stasis array and into the cold, oxygen-free vacuum of space. That means you'll want to enclose your stasis array as one of your first steps before people start popping out and dying immediately. At the start of your average game, the drones you have on hand are able to relocate everything you see except for the stasis array and the ship computer. To rearrange those two items, you either need to wait until your workers have leveled up the appropriate traits, or you can creep them along, using the relocate tool to shift them over a few tiles at a time. As long as the new location and the old location have a tile that overlaps, you can relocate the structure without needing a worker to do it. Whether you opt to use this questionable approach or not, adjusting the placement of starting items allows you to rearrange the initial layout of the ship as you plan ahead for where your colonists will go as soon as they come out of stasis. You'll want to make sure they have easy access to a toilet, a shower, some food, a table and chairs to eat said food at, and a bed to sleep in, and so you'll want to make sure they're able to safely get to those things after they step out of stasis. It's especially important to get the showers and toilets set up, as colonists will relieve themselves on the floor if you haven't provided a suitable place to do so, and the evidence of this relief will stay there until you get drones that are specifically capable of cleaning, and they take some time to arrive. Make sure not just to place these items and rooms down though. Make sure you check oxygen and heat levels in all the rooms and halls alike. I would highly recommend researching heating as quickly as possible, as the heaters it unlocks are far more efficient and superior to the mini heaters that barely heat up a few tiles around them. Keep in mind that different colonists will have different minimum comfortable temperatures that they'll be willing to walk through. Keep checking your overlays to make sure these minimums are met where needed. Apart from that, I would also recommend researching the autodock sooner rather than later, as it'll help heal colonists from any damage they take when getting out of stasis. It also helps keep your colonists healthy in general. Keep in mind that you can use the teleporter to send colonists from one end of your ship to the other, and if you'd rather not use halls to connect the stasis array to where they'll be staying, you can use a pair of teleporters instead. Colonists will automatically seek them out to get where they need, but make sure you've actually linked them to take people to the right place when used, and make sure both ends of the teleporter are able to sustain life, again, using oxygen and heat. Eventually, you'll want to toggle to advanced life support so you can have control over the release of your colonists, but preparing for those early few colonists involves a little bit of rushing and a lot of planning. Advancing and using skills. Drones and colonists alike are able to perform a multitude of tasks around the ship to keep it up and running, and to keep themselves healthy and operational, while also exploring the galaxy around you. Whether it's moving structures around, building new ones, operating facilities, cooking, cleaning, or mining planets, the ability of any worker to do those tasks is measured by their skill level that you can see when you have them selected. The tasks they take on are not only limited by their skills and respective skill levels, but they're also prioritized accordingly. While you can sometimes assign a specific worker to a specific task, especially with the right technologies researched, they're usually smart enough to know who should be tasked with what. It's important to note, however, that the most basic way in which a worker improves their skill is by actually using it. This can sometimes create a bit of a loop where a worker who was already good at something is the one who always does it, so you end up with just a couple of experts. While this isn't the end of the world, it can be trouble should one of these experts die due to a disease, an accident, or an incident, and sometimes you'll want to spread responsibilities to avoid this situation. And while drones can easily be told what to do by selecting them and using the control key and mouse buttons, you can only control living beings when you've researched mind control and have built a beta wave transceiver. And then again, some of these living beings will be resistant to mind control. The other way to train workers, specifically your drones, is through the use of the machine learning booth. Try to research advanced computing sooner rather than later so you can build the machine learning booth it unlocks and use it to train up your workers before said training is desperately needed. As I previously stated, you can simply let workers get better at their skills by using them, but by forcing a spread of skills across multiple workers, you don't have to worry about losing efficiency should one suddenly croak or run out of batteries or be sent out on an expedition. Some tasks also need a combination of skills from a single worker, like building the telescope, which needs a construction skill of 7 and a science skill of 4 just to build. Remember that these types of construction skill requirements need to be achieved by the same worker, not a combination of multiple. And if you ever find your workers lacking, you can spend the resources needed to build or clone more, or perhaps buy more. Trading and spacefaring. While you start a typical game of Stardeus stationary and alone in the void of space, you'll eventually be coming across other spacefarers and travel among the stars yourself. After your initial setup is done and the first or second colonists are out of stasis, you want to build a communicator as soon as you can, as this will allow you to summon merchants of various kinds. It takes some time for a merchant to pick up your signal, and it takes even longer for them to actually arrive, but when they show up, you'll be able to trade goods for goods or exchange money for goods too. Bear in mind you'll need at least one teleporter in order to actually complete the exchange, and the teleporter is where the traded goods will appear on your ship. It's important to establish the communicator early so you can have a stockpile of essential goods early on. The same materials that are needed for building walls are the ones typically burned for electricity generation, for example. Other essentials can be very scarce or require a great degree of processing before you even have a chance of acquiring them, while others still require a heavy investment of time and energy as far as research is concerned before you're even able to think about producing them. Additional drones, for example. Traders are also a great way to acquire additional living beings, be they workers or pets, and they're also an early gateway to various upgrades you can attach to your ship computer or shuttle to improve efficiency or generate money passively. Instead of waiting for merchants to come to you, you can also head to them if you see them roaming around, and rather than purchasing everything you need, you can also seek to produce it yourself, though you'll need to acquire the raw materials to do so. This is where expeditions and spacefaring come into play. When you build the bridge controls and thrusters and attach them to your power grid, you'll gain access to the star map. Here you can left-click on any point in space to travel to it, or you can left-click on a specific planet to travel directly to it. It'll take some time, and the more active thrusters you have, the faster you'll go, but keep in mind that each thruster will draw energy only when you're moving. So make sure you have enough surplus generation so, say, life support doesn't suddenly turn off when the ship's hurtling through space. Once you arrive at a planet, you can use the radar, if you have one, to scan it and determine if it's worth visiting. Or you can go in without any prior knowledge, selecting your shuttle and planning an expedition, choosing the right team based on their mining skills to make planetfall. They'll operate until their cargo hold is full, and they'll keep making round trips, dropping whatever they excavate off at the ship until you eventually end the expedition manually. This is a great way to get raw materials, whether you want to use them to build or to trade. When your away team is on the planet they explore, they will also sometimes come across merchants or other events too. Keep an eye out for trouble. Keep in mind again that if you spot a merchant ship on the star map, you can actually travel to them, intercepting them, and engaging them in trade yourself. Now, once you're done exploring the star system you're in, and once you have access to faster modes of transportation like FTL, Feel free to go to the star map and perhaps travel to a different star system in the galaxy. Or maybe a different galaxy in the universe. Or maybe a different universe in the... well, we'll see about that when we get the right technology. The secrets of science. Technological advancements in Stardeus works in an interesting way that I don't think I've ever seen before. There's a tech tree, which is a familiar enough concept, but to actually progress through it and complete a piece of research, you need to devote a certain amount of electricity, RAM, and disk space to it. The electricity requirement determines how long it'll take to research the item, and it's represented by how many kilo or megawatts need to be invested per 24 hours of time. So make sure you're generating enough surplus electricity to make research as efficient as it can be. Keep in mind that if you don't have enough power to efficiently do research, the ship won't shut down any other systems to divert power to science. It'll simply slow the rate of research down, sometimes to a ridiculous degree. Apart from electricity, you need two forms of memory. The first is in the form of memory modules that represent, as far as I understand, RAM. The number represents how many exabytes of memory you need, and by building memory modules, you'll be able to fulfill this prerequisite. Keep in mind that you only need this memory when actively researching the item, and when the research eventually completes, this memory gets freed up. You also need a certain amount of disk space where the research technology will be stored permanently. You need to have access to the disk space before you start researching the tech, and again, it'll be permanently used up unless you choose to unload it for some reason. Unloading a technology will free up the space it was taking on your disk, but if you ever need anything from it again, including the option to research a technology further down the same branch, you will need to re-research the technology you unloaded. Rather than ever doing that, you can simply build more disk modules to add more disk space per module you've built and connect it to your energy grid. The way technology works in Stardeus is, as I said earlier, very different, so make sure you keep an eye on how much progress you're making, if any, because again, there will be times where your lacking grid will slow research down to a ridiculous amount, and you also want to make sure that you're never in a situation where you need to desperately research something, but the lack of memory or disk space to do so is causing you to scramble as you build modules that you might not have the resources to build at the time, just in order to acquire technology that might make the difference between life and death. Stay on top of your research, stay on top of your electricity grid, stay on top of your memory modules and your disk space. But there you have it, folks. 4 essential tips to Stardeus that should give you a solid footing, even in the void of space. Remember to check out the link in the description and pinned comment down below if you want to learn more or grab the game for yourself. And if you have any questions or thoughts of your own, feel free to drop them in the comments down below. For more strategy, management, and sim gaming content, don't hesitate to subscribe. And if this video helped you out in any way, consider hitting that like button. As always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.